Hello, today I'm joined by Annalise Walmsley, the Commercial Director at Flatfair, and one of her very happy customers, Louise Passfield, the Operations Manager at Breckon&Breckon. How are you both doing?
Good, thank you. Hello.
Really good, thanks, David.
Thanks for joining us. So you have Louise, I'm going to address you first. You've been using Flatfair. What I wanted to try and sort of get an idea from you is what was your process like before Flatfair came along?
We had another nil deposit provider, which it just wasn't working. We weren't getting the uptake. It wasn't a package that offered as much as Flatfair currently does. So for us to sell it to a landlord and to a tenant, it was just, we're hitting a brick wall every time. So when Flatfair sort of came on board, it was a kind of a breath of fresh air with the 10 weeks that they offer to cover damages, rent arrears. The easy process that it is was, you know, a no-brainer to us. And actually, to start off with, initially we weren't too sure because we've had that bad experience in the past. But moving forward, it's a year, 18 months on, you know, the figures are brilliant. We're converting a huge amount compared to what we were previously.
That's fantastic. I mean, we'll talk about the figures because I was amazed by them earlier when I looked at them. But let's actually talk about the sort of the main efficiencies that you've gained as an agent since using it. I can obviously hear from that the actual, I suppose, the sale to a landlord is a lot easier when you've got a product and support that really is a complete process, and they feel they're getting value from, and most importantly, you do. But what are the other efficiencies that you've gained?
I think for us, the end process is much easier. So tenants are perhaps, you know, we with the old TDS issues, we had 5 weeks. They were desperate to get it back because they were moving homes. They needed that money. So the whole end process was quite difficult and timely. Whereas now they pay the deposit of 1 week, or not deposits, should I say, a 1 week charge. And then we charge them at the end of the tenancy of any dilapidations that they have, which actually we've done a few now and it's really smooth. And also the start of the efficiency of it is, from a landlord's point of view, it's 10 weeks rather than 5 weeks. And they don't really have to do anything from a landlord's point of view. We do it all on our systems. You know, the efficiency of it is really quick. Is an external platform to our CRM system at the moment, but hopefully that'll be introduced at a later date into our CRM system, which will be ideal because then it will be even more efficient to us than what it is already.
So I'm presuming that's a further USP when you're going out there talking to prospective landlords, that their cover with you is so much more than they'd normally be getting if they just did it sort of the regular way.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a good sales point. You know, 5 weeks to 10 weeks is double, and it includes rent arrears as well. So from a landlord, what would you take? 5 weeks, 10 weeks? It's up to you.
I'll take 10 weeks anytime. I think that is superb, and I can see how an agent would use that to actually sort of improve their conversion altogether. And I promise we will get to that soon. But this sort of, it has also freed up time generally in your kind of lettings admin support process. But we're talking physical time that people would have been sat waiting for things or chasing things previously in the past. What would you say you've sort of gained in terms of time, and more importantly, what do you now do with all that time?
Ideally, bring on new properties if there was availability. I think just reducing the admin time, you know, for lettings, admin is a huge amount of the references and the deposit information, your tenancy agreements. It doesn't stop. So I think the fact that if they do take a Flatfair policy, you don't have to go and register your TDS. It's straightforward. The system's easy to use. So I think admin time is reduced, which hopefully then means our staff can be out of the office a little bit more because they do all do their admin themselves. And perhaps, you know, bring in more business, do more viewings and get those properties let and new properties on the market.
And it sort of makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I mean, admin feels like dead time because you're already being paid to manage a property, but if you can free that time up and still do the job and deliver the service to the landlord, but also at the same time go out looking for new business, that's more pound productive, and it sounds like the ideal that most agents should be striving for. So I'm going to ask you the obvious question, and I already know the answer to this because you've given us your time today. But would you recommend this to any agents out there that weren't your direct competitors?
Definitely. Yeah. I think what it offers to a tenant and a landlord is great. It's worked for us. Our landlords, the cover's great. And for tenants, the flexibility with moving home and not having to fork out, thousands of pounds, because we're in a quite an expensive area. So your average deposit is sort of 2.5 up to 3.5 thousand pounds, which is a huge amount to find when you're moving.
And we spoke off camera before, and I sort of interrupted the conversation you were having about how great the account managers are at Flatfair and the support that you're getting. They were gushing with sort of picking up the great service that they've had. But I'm presuming it's easier to integrate new solutions into an existing admin process, or to introduce it to your team if the backup and the support that you're getting is as good as it can possibly be. How have your team reacted to it, and how easy was it to sort of get them into that Flatfair groove, as it was?
I think initially, to be totally honest, it was difficult because we come from a system that wasn't working. So to try and get those members of staff to trust that this new system was going to work, it has taken a while, I won't lie. But I think now we are sort of at the end of that, and all our staff now understand it. We've kind of it's part of our process now. So it's something we do every day. On every let we offer it now, and offer it to every new instruction upon property as well. So I I personally think, it's been a great help to us having Sandy and Annalise with us, because literally you email them within a few minutes or half an hour tops, you've got a response. And it's lovely they come and visit us as well, and it's nice to see them in person.
Fantastic. So Annalise, I've made you sit there and witness this onslaught of positivity and a great sort of public endorsement by one of your clients for the product that you've been working on with them. This is obviously not the only agent that's given you similar feedback, and it's great to hear that you're really sort of adding those efficiencies to people's processes. But Flatfair is an ever evolving model. It's ever evolving stream of products that you've got, and there's something quite exciting coming up, isn't there?
There is. I just kind of wanted to go back onto Louise's comment
Sure.
actually about the area in which they operate in. And I think, and Louise will probably back this up, is that one of the key objections that her team had at the outset was, it's our demographic of tenants don't want this. We live in a very, we operate and we are in a very affluent area where property prices are more expensive, and it's not a need for those tenants. And I think, again, Louise will back this up, is it's been demonstrated that there is a requirement even
Yep.
in that area of the country. But yeah, in terms of what's coming up, we're always looking at ways to innovate, to basically take as much administration away from agents as possible, but ultimately relieve the kind of in-person branch conversations, lots and lots of training, lots and lots of bespoke things, and soon to launch, and probably launched already after this conversation, will be our free referencing campaign alongside our Flatfair Deposits platform. So any agent can access our Flatfair Deposits platform, can transact their deposits with the kind of big three scheme providers. But then as a result of that, if they're offering Flatfair, we would then be covering a subsidy cost of their referencing as well. So up to £10 per tenant per property. So, if you've got 2 tenants, it's £20. If there's 4, there's £40. So you are increasing the value that we're adding, but also covering some of the additional costs that agents are bearing at the moment.
It's superb. When you look at what you were just saying there before about there perhaps not being a need for it in sort of higher value areas, that people there presumably cash flow wise might not be the thing that they're looking for at that time. But I suppose the moving process is always expensive for everybody. It's that time where we're not just moving house, but we end up buying something else that we need or we wanted, or we change something. It ends up trust me, from somebody that's done it many times, it ain't cheap. Packing your life up into boxes and moving it, even just 2 doors down the road, there's lots of ancillary costs that come with setting up in a new house. And I suppose every penny counts at that point, regardless of what value area you're in.
I think for me, it's not so much saving money. It's about the freedom of choice and giving somebody the freedom to decide how they spend that money, rather than dictating that you must put it into a deposit scheme and we must hold it for the lifetime of a tenancy. And we're really big advocates here at Flatfair of choice. And again, another reason for developing the solution that we have with Flatfair deposits is that it enables every tenant that is eligible, so where the landlord allows it, to be presented with a choice in a controlled way where they can make an informed decision.
And just to look at the statistics that you've provided, and particularly when it comes to Breckon&Breckon's use of this system, landlord conversion before you took this on was roughly at around sort of 33%, which is probably a decent batting average for most letting agencies. But it's now closer to sort of 60% after introducing this. You've also got tenant conversion at 11% before the trial, and year to date, well, for 2022 overall, and 3 months following the trial, you had sort of 54% tenant uptake, which is really, I mean, those are great statistics. It shows that you can add efficiency into your system, but you can also add to your bottom line at the same time.
Yeah.
Did it take you by surprise, Louise?
Massively, yeah. When we saw the figures, I think it was last week, we met with Annalise. We've introduced this TDS option. So Annalise is about choice. So the tenants all get a choice. So when it's put in front of them, where they've got 5 weeks, or they have got the flat fare policy of 1 week, the way it's presented on the platform, it's increased our take up massively. So for those tenants that kind of said, we've got the money, we don't need it, actually, when you put it in front of them in figures, the take up's massive. So I think that's helped hugely, and it's brilliant. 54%. It's brilliant.
And it's been scary to track it in the background. So I haven't really shared an awful lot with Lou, because we've kind of had like catch ups, and you've been ill and I've been ill, and there's been strike days and all sorts of different things. And for you, because it's just happening in the background, nobody really understood what the level of uptake was. And I remember tracking it and it going to 30% and 40%, and just thinking, wow, there is a huge demand there. And what it really highlights is that, like Lou said, putting it side by side, literally, do you want to pay A or B, and the tenant making a decision, but also how the tech controls the sale. It is a confidence thing. Deposit alternatives are still fairly disruptive in terms of the deposits market. And if you've got a member of staff that isn't confident with talking about it, that isn't really on board with it, your uptake rates are going to suffer as a result of that. And what we've seen on the flip side is the confidence in the product has now grown, which means the conversations they are having with landlords are now more positive, and they're now able to engage more landlords than they were before they used the flat fee deposit system.
And what I love about this as well is that really you've demonstrated that any agent can use this. It doesn't matter what your local market looks like. I mean, obviously, if you're privileged enough to sort of deal with the upper end of the market, that's great. But I'd imagine this would go really well in any part of that market, because it adds value for everybody involved, both landlord, tenant, and the agent.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of protection levels, that doesn't fluctuate depending on where you are in the country. We don't do it on postcodes. It's not any science behind it. Every landlord gets 10 weeks protection. Every tenant pays 1 week's rent plus VAT. And we operate in build to rent, so with the higher end kind of apartments. But then we also operate with agents that are based out in the sticks, where the average rent is £400-500 a month. And they are very small agents, but the uptake rates remain the same. So consistency wise, we see it across our partners between 35 to 45%. And we know we're never going to get 100% of the market, because it's about choice, and not everybody is going to choose the same thing.
But these conversion rates are just superb for something and a process to be able to sort of almost double some of those conversion figures there. I think it must bring a big smile to Louise and everybody at Breckon&Breckon in the background there, because it really has made a major difference to their business. So I'm going to thank you both for taking time out of your very, very busy days. But thank you, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, David.
Lovely. Thanks, David.